Hello, Sad Marcus here. Welcome back to my channel. Now, I've been doing these manga reading logs now for the past few months, but I haven't really nailed down a name for them. Well, that all changes today. So you guys, I present to you 4x1. Now, the reason why I'm calling it 4x1 is because we're going to be reading 4 separate volumes, all the first of their respective series. Now, this has always been a vehicle for me to introduce you guys to some manga that I'm reading, whether you've heard of it or not, but I think my taste, I guess. And though there are probably going to be some things that you've heard of in this little collection of things, maybe you'll find something that maybe you hadn't checked out yet. Now, before we get into exactly which titles we're going to be reading today, first of all, I want to say if you like anime, manga, and figure collecting, this is the place for you to be. So go ahead and click that subscribe button. Let me know that you fox with your boy the long way, you feel me? And I'm going to keep doing what I think I do best, at least delivering you that fire content that I know that you guys love. So anyway, for the books that we're going to be reading for today, it's going to be Too Many Losing Heroines, Volume 1, The Long Summer of August 31st, Volume 1, Now That We Draw, Volume 1, and Kowloon Generic Romance, Volume 1. Now, like I said, my hope is that you will get something out of this video. You will maybe find a new series that you fall in love with in the same way that I do, or maybe stay away from something that is just kind of mediocre. But I'm not going to ramble on too long in this intro. What you really came here for is to see what these books are all about, and let's do that right now. Okay, first up on our list is Too Many Losing Heroines. Now, this story is by, and please forgive me for messing up the names because I am terrible with names, but I'm gonna try it. Takebi Amamori and Itachi. Now, this is a manga adaptation of a light novel that's out right now, and I don't know how long it's been running in Japan. I don't know how many volumes it is. I did not do any research. Don't hold it against me. However, what I do know is that the English versions of the manga and the light novel are both releasing pretty much around the same time. I think the light novel is just slightly ahead of the English manga right now. Now, what got me even interested in reading this manga is actually the hit and phenomenal anime series that aired, I believe it was last summer season. It was so fantastic. I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna read the manga. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the manga. Plus, I wanted to support the work because I do want to get a second season of this series so bad because it was so good, and I just felt like there was so much left on the table that we could really be enjoying. But for now, we have the manga and we have the light novel. So as for a synopsis, the story is going to follow Kazuhoki Nukamizu. I hope I got that right. And he is a rom-com light novel enthusiast, so a little bit of meta going on there. And he is apparently a bit of an NPC, and so much of an NPC that Google didn't even bother to put his face in when I was like Googling the character names when I was writing this. They didn't even bother to put his face on like the pictures. All the girls and not the main character. That is an NPC if I've ever seen one. Now, he gets caught in the middle of 2 childhood friends and classmates at a family restaurant, and they were having a discussion basically about one of the childhood friends, liking this girl or whatever, and the girl was about to move away, and the other girl was trying to encourage him to go chase after her, even though it was like clear that she liked him. But he gets kind of roped into this thing by proxy, and this just kind of unlocks an entire crazy world of like losing heroines for him. Now, you may be asking yourself, if you're not already familiar with this series, what is a losing heroine? Well, a losing heroine is someone who basically either confesses to or wants to confess to someone or a guy. You know, it could also not be a guy, but for the sake of the story, it's all guys. So they want to confess to a guy, or they have confessed to a guy, and they basically get rejected, or the guy ends up with someone else. And so they are the losers. Now, the most memorable losing heroine, and the one I would probably consider the mascot of the show, is Anna Yanima. Now, she is not to be confused with the GOAT Anna Yamada. Now, she's the first heroine that Kazuhiko ends up meeting, catching her on the losing end of her childhood friend, like we kind of discussed a little bit earlier. Now, a majority of the first volume really revolves like these two's dynamic, at least the first few chapters, but it does find really hilarious ways to introduce the remainder of our losing heroines in the whole mix here. Now, they all have their own unique qualities and quirks to make them all interesting, and they each one does find a way to stand out and kind of stand on their own. It isn't just Anna kind of holding everything down. It is all the individual heroines making for a massive and interesting ensemble cast. Ultimately though, it seems like this series is trying to explore life after rejection, bouncing back from lost love, personal growth, and friendship through the lens of adolescence. So, what does this series do well? Well, probably one of my favorite things is the characters. Too Many Losing Heroines has a massive cast. I mean, a really big cast for like a rom-com kind of show. Beyond Kazuhiko, we spend a significant amount of time not only around all of the heroines, but also with the guys who they lost and the girls that they ended up with as well. It's interesting how they managed to weave all of these narratives together, never make anybody feel like overbearing or, making anybody feel too sad. In fact, in the first volume, they do a really great job of using these situations to introduce you to these characters so that you have like some sympathy for them, but you also kind of understand why they missed out. And it's various different reasons why they missed out. It isn't exactly just like personality. It could be a number of different things. Also, the writing is honestly great. It is a really, really well-written story. It's tight, it's consistent, it has a nice pace and flow. You really stay engaged throughout the story with everything that's going on and all its different elements. Now, all the typical high school rom-com tropes are present, but they're handled in really fun and relatable ways. Every character is genuinely likable, and they're characters that you really want to kind of hang out with. Everyone but Sosuke Hakamata, cause fuck that guy. He fucking sucks. With that said, Too Many Losing Heroines is not a perfect book. It does get one major thing wrong, and I think this is like my personal opinion, and it is the artwork. I do not like the artwork in this book. I just cannot. I mean, it was so distracting to me that I got to the point where I wasn't even looking at the pictures anymore. I was literally looking just at the words, which makes me feel like I should read the light novel, which interestingly enough, the light novel is illustrated by a totally different artist. Like, the thing about the art style is it's so loose and dreamy. It kind of has like this sketchy quality to it, to the point where it doesn't just feel like an artistic choice. Now, once again, this is me, and I'm not one to badmouth anybody's artwork because I am not some kind of artistic genius. Like, I, in the grand scheme of things, could not hold Itachi's jockstrap because I am not capable of doing as much as they are accomplishing in this book. But visually, for my eyes, it just rejected what I was looking at. I just could not get with it. At the end of the day, it left me feeling like I should have just read the light novel. So, what did I think about this book? Well, there is a lot to love about the characters and the writing, but the artwork really pulls this manga down from what could have been like a 9 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. Now, to be fair, I do think the artwork is a little bit more appealing in volume 2, though I can't decide whether that's because I was just a little bit more used to it after reading one full volume, or if it did indeed get a little bit better, like a little bit more appealing, like maybe somebody pulled Itachi beside and was like, hey, yo, bro, this right here ain't it, fam. We need you to rethink this. But it does get a little bit better while still maintaining like a similar art style. With that said, I am personally thinking about pivoting over to the light novel, though I have been collecting the manga series and I probably will continue collecting it, but I don't know. I'm thinking I might start reading the light novel, honestly, and I feel like there are probably some good details in the light novel that are left out. So I think I will start picking that up really, really soon and just reading that for funsies. I don't know. Anyway, 7 out of 10. Okay, our next book is going to be Now That We Draw. And the story is by Kayu Takahata and the art is by Yuichi Kaba. Now, I picked this one up because I love romance.
Well, duh.
And I love books about making manga. In fact, I love books and stories and movies or whatever about pretty much anything creative. Like, if you're making anything, music, art, like, cakes, like, I don't care what it is, I'm gonna have some type of passing interest in it. I just really enjoy seeing things about the creative process. I really do find all of that fascinating, especially coming from like a mangaka. There's like just a little bit of a meta aspect to that. Like, I wonder how much of like their own personal journey they injected into this story. But Anyway, I digress. That's not really what you're here for. Now, for the synopsis, this story follows two high school students, Yuki Uehara and Nina Miyamoto, who are both aspiring mangaka. Nina is a super popular geru, and you know how I love them gerus. She's tall, she's attractive, she's very studious, surprisingly, and she's super inexperienced with relationships. Yuki, on the other hand, of course, is a total dweeb. I mean, he is a dweeb, he is a loser, he is the archetype for these type of stories. In the school that they go to, my boy is basically invisible, but he is also an aspiring mangaka because he has a particular penchant for love and romance, even though he has less experience than Nina does. Now, what ends up leading these two together is this particular moment when he went to go pitch his series to an editor at like a publisher or whatever, and the editor pretty much crushes his dreams, though I don't think it was necessarily in like a negative way. Like, I think they were pretty easy with it. You know, they didn't go too crazy. But anyway, you know, my boy is just basically down in the dumps about it. He's like, man, I'm about to quit. Like, I'm about to throw this manuscript away or whatever. But he accidentally puts the manuscript into Nina's locker. She's coming over to check her locker or whatever. Ends up getting her hands on the manuscript. And despite all of his efforts to keep her from reading it, she ends up reading it. And she's like, whoa, this is beautiful. It's also terrible. So anyway, they get to talking, and they both are kind of experiencing similar things. Basically, their editors are like, hey, yo, bro, this ain't it. You don't know nothing about nothing. Like, you need to go back to the drawing board with this shit. So Nina proposes something to him. She's like, hey, yo, Yuki, check this out. Why don't we just enter into a little fake relationship? And so, you know the trope, this sets it all off, man. Whole bunch of hijinks end up ensuing. But one thing that you have to wonder throughout all of this, how fake does Nina think this relationship is? Because from Yuki's perspective, there's no reason why this popular and beautiful Geru would really be interested in him. But when Nina is by herself, or, you know, those little moments when she turns her head when she's blushing, it makes you wonder when you're reading it, is this girl into this guy? Anyway, through this fake relationship, obviously they start getting closer and closer. So at the end of the day, it leaves you wondering, will Nina be able to bring Yuki out of his shell? And that's really kind of what we're dealing with here in this book. So with that said, what does this book do well? I think there's a few things it does well. I think the storytelling is actually pretty good in this book. I'm not even mad at it. It does run through all the same tropes in quite a few ways that you probably already experienced, but it's really anchored by solid characters who really help get you through it. Now, I will say that it is going through these tropes at a breakneck speed. I mean, they encounter a lot of the typical romance tropes, almost all of the major ones in volume 1, which is crazy because usually it's a little bit more of a slow burn, especially in these kind of odd couple opposites attract type situations. But man, they're like boom, 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 boom. I'm not going to tell you which ones that they're hitting, but man, they are going through them quick. Like you look up from volume 1 and you're like, man, where are they going to go with the tropes from here? Even still, I think it manages to stick the landing. It does make you worry for the future of the series, but as far as a single volume in a vacuum, it does a great job of moving through these tropes, making them feel believable and relatable for the most part. I would also say that the characters are solid, though this take is going to be a little bit more nuanced because I think the characters are both the best thing about the story and also the worst thing about the story. But for now, we're going to focus on what makes them work. And once they get past the initial setup, their interactions do become a little bit more endearing and adorably awkward. I mean, the two of them together are just like, oh, really? Now, watching them become closer is honestly one of the best things that this manga has to offer. I think that's what's going to keep you around because it isn't anything that you haven't seen before. But I think if you can get invested in these two, especially after like the first chapter, I think they'll keep you coming back for more. I think one thing that I love about this book is that they use the tropes, the typical kind of romance tropes, to explore these characters a little bit deeper. Now, for example, Yuki is kind of quiet, reserved, nervous, like does not believe he's supposed to be here and acts like it with every interaction they have. However, he is the one of the two of them that is able to do things that take him outside of his comfort zone, albeit with a little bit of a nudge from Nina herself. Now, Nina, on the other hand, the outgoing Geru, who's like good at everything and super popular, you would think like, you know, hey, she's a little outspoken, like she really be out here, like you can get her to do pretty much anything. But inside, she's really shy and scared to, you know, take the plunge and try different things. So it's interesting seeing those two dynamics kind of bubble up to the surface. Once again, two things that you have seen before in romance, but it's done well in this particular book. Not in a new way, just anchored in solid characters. Just through the first volume, you see a solid bit of growth between these characters, and that's kind of what keeps you coming back for more. So of course, after talking about the good things that the book does, we gotta talk about what it gets wrong. And this brings me back around to our characters. As much as I gushed about them and talked about things that I really liked that they were doing well, I still had some issues with these characters. It's really not hard to compare this book to a much better book, and I've already referenced it one time before, but in case you forgot, I am talking about The Dangers in My Heart. It is not lost on me how much of a parallel Ichikawa and Yuki are, as well as Nina and Anna. Like, they are two peas in a pod. They feel like very similar characters. If anything, I would argue that Ichikawa is a much more solid protagonist who's like a bit more relatable, and their situation feels a bit more anchored in some form of reality. Now that we draw kind of barrels through those relationship aspects really fast, and it doesn't really give our characters enough build up, enough burn to it. So Yuki and Nina's kind of relationship happens really, really fast. And granted, they're still in a fake relationship, but they're hitting those milestones really quick. Whereas it's been such a slow build for Anna and Ichikawa. For them, you could really see the building blocks from being friends to being like two people that kind of liked each other and the will they won't they aspect to being actual lovers. And I would even say there was like a time period where they were just like classmates too. So you were kind of contending with those things and building up with that. Whereas now that we draw is 0 to 100 real quick, just foot on the gas. And those are some of the things that make this charming, but I think sometimes the characters get lost a little bit in that. I definitely think the characters and the story itself even could have benefited from a little bit more time simmering that relationship and kind of building up a little trust between these two characters before they're just kind of jumping off the deep end and really kind of hitting those major milestones like this. Now, the elephant in the room for me is the sexualization of Nina. I did have some issues with that. I get it. I know that this book is really kind of designed to appeal to a particular type of audience, and I may not be that audience, but I just definitely feel like sometimes this book can kind of really get up on that line of like Gunnar material, and I don't like that at all, because I think these are solid characters, and I think this is a really solid, if not, you know, potentially good story and storytelling for people who like romance and just want to see other characters kind of doing these situations and seeing how they handle it. I feel like this is a massive negative for this book. Like, there are way too many cleavage and upskirt shots in this book for my taste. Like, I just feel like there is no real reason in the plot for it to have as many of those as they do. Like, just straight Gunnar material. And I'm like, tone it down, man. These are teenagers, you feel me? Like, I get it. When I was a teenager, I was pretty fucking horny too, but like, dude, come on. We really don't need all of this. Just simmer it down just a little bit. And I think it would be a whole lot better for it. I think it would just make it a little bit easier to focus on the storytelling and focus on these characters that you guys are creating. So what's the final verdict on How We Draw? There's a lot of potential for good. There's some great funny moments. There's some really solid characters that we're working with here. I just really want them to slow this down just a little bit. Let things simmer a little bit. Let's build these characters up and build up their relationship, and then let's kind of get there to the finish line. I feel like the race is going too fast. Also, can we tone down the sexual bits just a little bit? Just a little bit. It was a little bit much in the first volume. Once again, I don't mind a little bit of ecchi stuff, but I think it was just too much and too unnecessary in the first volume. That said, I still think this book is about a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. I know I'm hedging, I'm not saying anything perfect, but I feel like it's right in between that 7 and 8. I think it's a little bit better than a 7. I think a few things bring it down, so it's not quite an 8, but if you put it in an 8, I wouldn't be mad at it. That's a long explanation for a rating, but solid book. Definitely would recommend picking it up if you are into this kind of romance. Know that they're not reinventing the wheel, but it's still a very solid and earnest effort in my opinion. So our next book is going to be The Long Summer of August 31st, Volume 1. And this story is by Akito Ito, story and art by Akito Ito, I should say. Now, Akito Ito has done another book called, I think, I'm Not Meat, which I was kind of interested in reading. I don't know too much about what the premise of that particular book is. I think I've heard a little bit about it, but I am kind of interested in reading that. Anyway, that's not important. I just wanted to throw out there that they have another book that is also translated in English, by the way. Now, this is one that I found through manga recaps. Like, I just was watching a manga recap one day and this particular one popped up and I was like, oh, this looks like a very, very interesting story. So once I saw that it was releasing in English, I decided that I was going to pick it up. And I gotta say, I was kind of glad that I picked it up. Now, this story follows Takaya Suzuki and Kana Tagaki, I believe it is. Don't fault me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And they are on their last day of summer break, but this is the 31st time that they've met up. But it was not 31 individual days. Oh no, that would be too simple. It is the same day, August the 31st. It's in the title, okay? It's in the title. Suffice it to say that these two are stuck inside of a time loop that they cannot figure out how to break. Now, when they were actually trying to come up with a way to get out of this time loop, Takaya did remember, or it kind of dawned on him that, hey, like I had set these goals to like get a girlfriend and to be quite frank and a little crass, lose his virginity by the end of the summer. Now, these two are in a peculiar situation because there's no way he's gonna find like a girlfriend to lose his virginity to in like such a short period of time, considering that they only really have one day to do this. The same day, and it looks like they have infinite time to do it, but it is one day. Now, logically speaking, yeah, sure. Like if you use regular logic, he probably maybe could. I don't know. I'm not saying that it is the most, moral thing, but he probably could find a girlfriend that he could sleep with. But the thing is, I think Takaya, or it is implied that Takaya wants more than that. He wants to do all of these kind of traditional date things, or these like dating tropes with him, these romance tropes. You get where we're going with this. Well, Kana says, hey, look, I'm not gonna be your girlfriend. I'm definitely not about to do it with you. But what I will do is all these different romance tropes with you, all these different dates, all these things that you want to do with a girlfriend, except for that now. Except for that, I'm not doing that with you, but I will do all these little activities with you to see if it will help break the loop. And that's what kind of sets us down this road of these two growing closer and closer with each loop. Now, this leaves us with the question of, are they going to be stuck in this loop forever? Will they figure it out? And just what's going to happen once this loop is broken? Really compelling stuff here, honestly. It's a really refreshing premise to kind of set off, and like an interesting way to kind of use the tropes. But we'll talk about that in just a second when we talk about what this book does really well. And I'm going to say, first and foremost, the premise. I mean, the premise is refreshing. Yes, time travel is not new. Time travel in romance is not new. But I think the way that Ito is approaching this particular story is a little refreshing. Like, it's a little bit of tension in it with very little drama. This is mostly comedy, but it adds a little bit of underlying tension because it's like, for the characters themselves, they have like a time constraint. Like it adds like a little bit of underlying, drama or whatever to the whole thing, because it's like, okay, they need to figure this thing out, but they only have one day to figure it out. Yes, it is a repeating day, but it's not like they have a whole week to try to find him a girlfriend or like whatever. And then even if that is the case, what if they do all this stuff, or what if she, they do all this stuff and she decides to be his girlfriend or whatever? Like, will that still get them out of the loop? So it's an interesting premise because there is nothing that tells you how to get out of this. They just have to figure it out, and it keeps you like focused on these two characters and like what it is that they're doing on a day-to-day basis and how they're using these tropes. And let me tell you, in the first volume, they use them in some really interesting ways, to be honest. I think too, the premise kind of gives you a really cool way to bring these characters together for us to learn more about them through these kind of repeating days, which is like kind of a really cool thing. I think it really opens up the door for them to have a future after it. And I don't know, I love the premise. I hadn't really read anything quite like this. And you can let me know down in the comments if you know of a book that does a similar thing, because I know there are a lot of like copycat books and some of them kind of rise to the top. So I'm curious if you know of any other manga that kind of originated this or had done it before, had done it in a similar way. But for this is something kind of new and refreshing for me. Now, I also love these two characters. First of all, Takaya really does kind of come off a little bit as like a creep, you know, but especially because he just says stuff sometimes and you're just like, my boy, you can't say shit like that, bro. You can't. You be like, my guy. Who raised you? But like under some of those things that's going on, he actually is like a really nice and considerate guy. And then you have Kana over here who really plays like kind of hard to get with our boy for good reason, because my dude just be saying shit. He be like, anyway, she plays kind of hard to get with him, but in the grand scheme of things, you can see like when she goes home and she thinks about him or like whatever, she's like fighting it. She's like, I don't want to like this guy, but she like clearly likes this dude. Like she's clearly kind of getting in, and it's like it's a different way to do like, you know, the slow burn romance, but it being encapsulated in the same day and seeing them have like this Groundhog's Day like experience, which maybe some of you don't know what Groundhog's Day is, but it's a Bill Murray movie. And I mean, Bill Murray, for as far back as I can remember, has looked like an older guy, but not as old as he looks now. So let's say young Bill Murray, but it was a younger Bill Murray movie where he just repeated the same day over and over again. And so in turn, you would see the same events repeat, but they would interact with those events differently. And I think, you know, there's like one particular scene when they do that, and I think the way they handle it is really kind of cool. But yeah, it really puts these characters in a position where they can kind of grow and blossom in a world that feels kind of familiar for them. So I love these characters. I love these characters. They're so funny. Like they have really good chemistry together. Like they're written with great chemistry together, and I really love that. So yeah, I'm just interested in seeing them. And the thing is, because they're in this loop, it makes a lot more sense for it to be those two, at least in the first volume. Maybe they'll introduce other people who are stuck in this loop too. I don't know. But for that first volume, you basically spend a majority of your time with just those two. So it really kind of hammers home their growing feelings, and it feels relatable and natural. So with that said, we gushed about the characters, we gushed about the premise for too long, I think. But what does this book do bad? It's really nothing. Like, I think this book just nails it. You know what I'm saying? I think it nails it all the way down, from tone to pacing to character development, setting, premise. Like, it really keeps you on your toes. It's not like really a mystery per se, but in the back of your mind, you are thinking about the premise of it, which I think is good. It's a great gimmick, let me say that. They're not really rushing through the romance tropes, kind of like Now That We Draw, even though I think that's a solid book too, not to take anything away from it, but I did talk about that being one of my issues. This has really been a slow burn, and I think that they found a great way to do the slow burn where it will make sense, right? Like, you get connected to these two characters, you understand why she's not trying to speed run it, you understand why he's not trying to speed run it, and I think you really kind of understand their bond and connection as it grows a little bit better as a result of it. I don't know, maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but that's just what I think. It is a really good book. So that's a good segue into the verdict. I just told you, it's a really good book. It's worth you reading. Great, refreshing premise, cool characters. Buy this book, man. I think of anything on this list, I think most of the stuff that we're talking about is going to be to taste. I think this is the one that has the most broad appeal. I think most people will like this. Some people may have some issues with the way Takaya is when it first starts off, but I think for the most part, you can hop onto this book if you like romance. I think even if you don't like romance, honestly, it's just cute. It's cute. It's fun. It's a fun read. It's breezy. It looks good. The art's really good. Like, pick up this book. 9 out of 10. Great book. Buy it. Alrighty, for our final book on this list, we're going to be talking about Kowloon Generic Romance Volume 1 with story and art by Jun Miyazaki. Now, I decided to dive into this particular series because I've been watching the absolutely phenomenal anime week over week, and I actually kind of bought in after episode 2 because I thought that shit was dope. And I was like, man, I want to read this, especially after hearing people who read the manga say that there is some things that are kind of missing and the pacing is a little off. I thought I would go ahead and read it. Now, the story is a little complex to explain, especially if you're trying to like withhold spoilers, because I really would encourage you to read this or watch the anime, but I'm going to try my best to kind of give it to you without giving you too much. So the story follows what I would consider the 3 central characters. Reiko Kajari, who is a real estate agent with a sordid past that she can't quite remember. Hajime Kudo, her co-worker who just might know a little bit more about her past than he's letting on. And the city of Kowloon itself, which honestly feels like a living, breathing character and a big part of like how this story functions. Now, Kowloon is a very mysterious and kind of elusive city. It's full of like stacked buildings and like winding corridors and just secrets like waiting to be revealed in and of itself. Now, Reiko is trying to discover herself, walking that fine line between the woman that Hajime knows and the woman that she is right now. But the Reiko that we're introduced to is tied to the secrets buried inside of Kowloon and its ever-changing dynamic with the people inside of it. Will Reiko discover who she truly is, and can Hajime ever really accept that? I know that's super duper vague, but that's kind of what's going on in a nutshell. So what does this book do well? Well, the characters are astounding. These are some of the best characters I've seen in a manga in a long time. Number one, they're adults. They're not high schoolers. They aren't little kids, you know, whatever. They're adults. They're like 30 somethings, which is like relatable immediately. I'm not 30 something, but I'm just saying that I can relate to 30 somethings a lot better than I can relate to a bunch of 14, 15, and 16 year olds showing their fucking panties. Reiko and Hajime are like excellent protagonists. There's just so much underlying tension between the two of them, just always bubbling under the surface when they interact. It really feels like nostalgic. It feels like two people who have known each other forever. But like the crazy thing is Reiko has just like been dropped into this. Like it's almost like she's been dropped into this at the same time we've been dropped into it, but the world just functions like she's been there the whole time. But they still talk about how she is clearly not the same person as the person with the same face that everybody else knows. So it's like a really crazy premise, and watching her walk that line of like not wanting to know who she was, but like also desperately wanting to know who she was, but also like wanting to define herself as who she is like now, is so interesting, and it's so like well done with this particular character. And I think you could say the same thing about Hajime. Like Hajime is an interesting, elusive character. Like he really wants her to be the person that he knew and loved like so badly, and you can see it, but he still kind of gives her that space to be who she is, but also like subtly, very subtly, like kind of trying to remind her of who she was. And it's really cool, but it's also like not even just driving that like underlying thing on, but just like the day-to-day interactions that really have nothing to do with the mystery of who Reiko is like at all. It's just their interactions with like other people throughout it. And there are some other reoccurring characters that are in like the series, but we spend a lot of our time in volume 1 with them and then kind of introducing some of the people around them. But it's really like hyper focused on either, you know, developing Reiko by herself and developing like her interactions with Hajime specifically. So it's really cool kind of like how it happens and just how endearing these two characters are when they're together, and especially how like interesting Reiko is and her like situation is, like how relatable it is like as an individual trying to find yourself. And I think it's like cool that she's like 30 something too, because it just goes to show that like you kind of never really know yourself. Like you're always evolving and you're always kind of discovering who you are. It just takes a lifetime to discover who you are. And so I just think that's like a really cool aspect of these characters. Now, I think that is also tied to the other thing that I think this does really well, which is the writing. I really enjoy good writing. I think that's been a thing that I've hammered home with some of these other books. But of all of these books that we talked about, and as much as I've enjoyed the writing in these other books, I think this book is like the pinnacle. Jun Miyazaki, or Miyazuki, or I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your name, but like, you are absolutely killing it with the writing in this book, because it is so layered. Like, there are so many themes that she is tackling in this book, and there are so many like underlying things, so many like allegories that are going on here. It's very complex writing for a manga that I think is just amazing. Like, I think there's just so much that you can take from it. I mean, I would love to see like a novel version of this, honestly, because I feel like there's so much more that she could say about what's going on. And I would love to see how she kind of described it. What you get sucked into here is the writing, right? You get sucked into the story that's being told and how it's being told, the mystery of it all, but also like the relatability of it all. You just get really drawn in. And I think the writing is probably the strongest point of the story, like, for real. And I wish I could tell you guys more about what's going on in this, but I so desperately want you to either read this or watch the anime, that I want you to have the same experience I had when I was watching the anime, because I watched that first. When I watched the anime and things were kind of unfolding, and I was like, wow, like, I'm glad I knew absolutely nothing about this other than it looked interesting to watch. Next up, and I can't go on to the bad without talking about the art first and how fantastic it is. It has this really kind of retro feel to it while also feeling really modern. Like, it feels like something that could have come out of the 70s, but it feels super polished too. Like, it has some of the modern, like, post, 70s, 80s anime art, like the big eyes and stuff like that, but it still kind of has the same kind of hairstyles and, line styles. It's just an interesting kind of melding of art styles, which really plays into the theme of this, like that theme of nostalgia, that feeling of something that feels both foreign and also very relatable, or very I can't think of the word right now, but it feels very it's on the tip of my tongue, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about and you are screaming at the screen right now. Familiar is the word that I'm looking for. Something that feels very familiar, and that's exactly how this book feels. The artwork feels in it, and it's incredibly detailed. Reiko just looks absolutely gorgeous in some of these scenes. I mean, even in scenes where she's like just completely distressed and disheveled, or even when she's like really like embarrassed and blushing because of her, interactions with Hajime. It is just so well done. It's so cool, and the characters are so expressive. They're so expressive in so many different ways. Like, you really get a sense of how they feel in the moment because of how well they're designed. And of course, the character models are great. The backgrounds are also excellent. The way Kowloon is depicted just makes it look gritty, but also vibrant and like a place that you want to be. It feels like a real kind of living, breathing community that you want to be a part of. And I love that about this book. So with that said, I spent a lot of time gushing and saying a whole lot of words that don't mean much of nothing, but let's talk a little bit about what it does wrong. And it's nothing. This book does nothing wrong. This first volume is fucking great. It is great. As much as I love the last book we talked about, the long summer of August 31st, Kowloon generic romance is peak. It is peak adult romance and like mystery, kind of little bit of sci-fi elements. Man, this thing is so good and it's so addictive. Like, it is a page turner because you really want to know what's going next. I bought all 9 volumes at one time. All right, because I knew that I was not going to be able to put it down. And I mean, I had a hard time putting down volume 1. The only reason why I'm not reading the other ones right at this very moment is because I'm trying to make this video. Okay, it does nothing. I mean, there's no holes in the writing. Like, you don't feel confused or anything. Now, I can't say that for the entire series. I haven't read the whole thing, but if we're just talking about volume 1 in a vacuum, this may be one of the most perfect volume ones. The only thing that I would say about this is it leaves you, wanting more, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't leave you at a point. I think I read a book recently, The Color of the End. I mentioned that earlier. It left me wanting more, but I was also satisfied with where they left it. This one, I am not satisfied. I'm like, bro, I gotta know what's gonna happen. And I think that is also a good thing a book can do. Great book. So, with that said, what do you think my verdict is? It's a fucking 10 out of 10, bitch. It's a 10 out of motherfucking 10. Buy this book. This shit is great. Great characters, great artwork, great everything. I give you a rating at the beginning, 10 out of 10. This is a great book. I think that more people should be talking about this. It upsets me that it took me this long to find out about this book. I am like, man, I feel like I should have been reading this last year. And I'd seen it on the shelf at Barnes & Noble a number of times and just like passed by it completely. Just didn't read the title. I think I saw the Kowloon on it. I might have saw the covers a little bit, but just really did not pay attention to it. Because if I had saw a book on the shelf that had romance on the title, my dumb ass would have bought it. 10 out of 10. Read this. You will not be disappointed. There's not a dull moment in this thing. Read it. Alrighty, so there you have it, my friends. My thoughts on these 4 books. I thought they all had their merits. I mean, I think they're all kind of worth reading, but I would say if I had to pick one book on this list to tell you should 1000% read this, Kowloon Generic Romance. Great book. Fantastic book. You will not be disappointed. With that said, if you enjoyed this video or any of my other content, please go ahead and click that subscribe button, man. It really helps me grow this channel. I would really love to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. I am trying to put in the effort to put more content out more consistently. I have a roadmap. Like, this video is probably recorded weeks before you're actually seeing it. So I hope you enjoy the effort that went into making this particular video for you. But yeah, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Also, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that like button. And I really, really love discussion. Hop down in the comments. Tell me what you thought of these books when you read them, or if you found them interesting, or if you found this review or manga reading log interesting enough that you want to go out and pick up one of these books or maybe read one of them online. I think every single one of them are available on MangaDex, so you don't even have to pay for them, okay? I say 1000% support the mangakas, but sometimes it be like that. And the stories are so good, by any means necessary, I want you to read these books. Anyway, more content coming out soon. I drop a video every week and I am trying to stick to that plan. So, don't hold me against it because I said it out loud, but we will have something good coming up for you next week that may not necessarily be exactly this, but something you will probably enjoy. And speaking of something that you might enjoy, you might really enjoy one of the 2 videos that you see on the screen. So click on one of those, stick around, let me know what you think about that video that's sitting here for you to watch. But as I always say, let's continue to talk about the things that we like, the things that we don't, and everything in between. And until next time, peace.